Oh well, I looked into that little part anyway. She couldn't tell me. However, these guys were great, and they taught me. Then, when I got to the set to do it, they got it. It made sense to the director. He didn't want to know what was going on. In the 1950s, June Cleaver became very popular in the United States. With her pearls and fresh cookies, she was the perfect housekeeper. However, Barbara Billingsley's real life was not at all like that. In front of the cameras, she was keeping bad things from him. When she was 4 years old, her father left her. During Prohibition, she worked in bars that were off limits. They were married 3 times, and she buried 2 of them. While she was on TV's Perfect Mom, she smoked 2 packs a day. Hollywood forgot all about her after the show was over. But she was shocked the most when she did something that made people in America stun decades later. Her birthday is December 26, 1915, and she was born in the middle of Los Angeles. Los Angeles wasn't sure what it wanted to be at that time. Sounds were being added to movies for the first time, and companies were springing up like weeds not far from where she lived. In those days, her dad made a good living as a police officer, making about $135 a month. As time went on, he was promoted to deputy chief. This gave Barbara an early look into 2 worlds, the growing dream factory of Hollywood and the rough, unpredictable side of law enforcement. Her mother worked hard to make ends meet and was born to Irish immigrants. Barbara's childhood home was right in the middle of how Hollywood was changing. She could have breathed the same air as Fred Astaire and Mary Pickford. Far enough away that none of that glitz and glamour ever softened the early blows her family took. When she was 4, her dad left. He didn't just end a relationship. He left behind 2 children and a wife who was having a hard time. It was 1919, and getting divorced didn't just mean ending a marriage. It hurt people's identities. For $18 a week, her mom had to work terrible shifts at a knitting mill, sometimes 12 hours a day. Barbara moved around a lot as a child, staying with different cousins and sleeping in different beds. She also saw her mother break her back to stay alive. She later said that the family she played on TV was the one she had always dreamed of having when she was a child. Barbara began to find a new side of herself at George Washington High School. She was more than just a student. Everyone looked at her. Her memory was not at all what it seemed. When her teachers gave her a speech, she knew it by heart in 2 days. When Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene was put on stage, the audience was so shocked that parents wrote letters saying it was too scary for their teens. No one saw how hard she worked when she wasn't in class. She worked at Woolworth's and made 25 cents an hour, which was just enough to pay for her stage makeup and outfits. During the Great Depression, even grown men couldn't find work. It was hard for most teens to get through the day, but Barbara was working hard at everything. In Beverly Hills, she went from door to door selling candy. Because she was a cigarette girl, she made more in tips than most people did in a week. She posed for clothing shops in the area, for newspaper ads, and for auditions at the Pasadena Playhouse when no one was looking. Her mom thought she was in the library studying. Barbara was really going after something she couldn't quite put her finger on yet. It was 1934, and she was only 19. She took a chance that could have ended everything. She quit college, lied to her mom, and bought a train ticket to New York with the only money she had left, $1.27. She told her family that she was moving on to UCLA. She went to Broadway instead, but all she had with her was a bag and her dreams. After 4 nights, her first show was over. She ended up in a crowded boarding house with 12 other actors who were also having a hard time. They lived off of beans and crackers. During the last few months of Prohibition, she worked as a hat check girl in illegal speakeasies and got tips from thieves. It was dirty and dangerous. Women who talked smooth and smiled with knives behind their backs taught her how to avoid them. That gave her the strength she would need later in Hollywood. In 1945, 10 years after her New York bet, she broke up with MGM. That was when the call came. She was 30 years old and made $60 a week as a fashion model in New York. Glenn Billingsley Sr. opened a restaurant the same year she did, and they moved back to Los Angeles. It wasn't really a dream, though, it turned out to be a trick. She played party guests and a woman with hives in movies. Not even a name, just a short statement. She would get to the opening and find that her whole scene had been cut. She did a lot of work that no one would thank her for. She didn't have the choice to say no. In 1948, she finally made it to the big screen. A film noir called The Argyle Secrets, in which she played Elizabeth Court, was a dark story with political undertones. Even though it wasn't a big movie, it meant a lot to her. That was the first time the credits didn't treat her like background, but it didn't really change much. In the 1950s, she kept getting small parts as workers, wives, and the good girl next door. She was classy, calm, and easy to picture in certain roles. Because of this, she kept missing out on parts that needed fire. There was something that TV never had in movies: a second chance. She was on the Abbott and Costello show in 1952. That little moment grew into something bigger. She was on the Pepsi-Cola Playhouse, for Star Playhouse, and the Loretta Young Show. It wasn't until 1955 that she got a steady role on the sitcom Professional Father. Even though it was only for a season, it gave her experience, which was more valuable than money. She learned how to be a nice, funny mother figure without falling into cliché. That part taught her what she needed to do to get better. Between 1955 and 1957, she kept getting better. From Make Room for Daddy to The Pride of the Family and other variety shows, she learned how to play a wide range of roles. After that, Studio 57 showed the pilot for what would become Leave It to Beaver in a Quiet Way. In the same year, she played the lead in The Careless Years with Dean Stockwell. The movie tried to make her a movie star. But people didn't remember them. It didn't matter. There was already going to be something bigger. Her personal life had been going through storm after storm before that big break. She got married for the first time when she was 26 years old, in 1941. Glenn Billingsley Sr. was married to her. He was from the family that ran the famous Stork Club in New York. He seemed successful because he owned several places, but things were not stable. They were no longer married by 1947. Barb was left with Drew and Glenn Jr., two young boys, and no steady income. She filled any job she could find while she raised them by herself. She got married again in 1953, this time to Roy Colino, a director who seemed like a good match for both love and work. But bad luck struck. Roy died suddenly of a heart attack in 1956, just as she was getting ready to move into TV. He was only 44 years old. She had to keep working even though she was sad because she knew she couldn't stop. It only took Beaver 6 months to knock on her door. Then, in 1959, she married Dr. William Mortensen, which was her third and most stable marriage. He brought peace into her life. A doctor who helped her feel safe financially and emotionally. They were married for 22 years. Barbara became well known during those years. Everyone loved June Cleaver as their favorite TV mom. The same thing happened again in 1981. When William died, she was once again a widow. She was sad because 2 of her 3 husbands had died, but she never let it show on TV. Barb Billingsley was 41 years old and still hadn't had her big break. She had been moving around Hollywood for years, getting small parts on TV and unnamed roles in movies like The Bad and the Beautiful and Invaders from Mars in 1957. She didn't like the story for the new show Leave It to Beaver that her agent gave her. The part of June Cleaver didn't seem real to her. Like a mother made of cardboard that doesn't have any real meaning. Her agent wouldn't let her pass, even though she was ready to. Barbara agreed to try out after being persuaded and having some important changes made to the plot that gave June more depth. They didn't want to make that choice, but it would change everything. She had no idea that she was going to beat out hundreds of other well-known actors. That person had to be able to really show maternal love, especially since 9-year-old Jerry Mathers was already cast as Beaver. It wasn't just reading words. There had to be connection, something real, and a sense of home for them. For Barbara and Jerry to read together, it was right away. It seemed so easy for them to connect that producers didn't think twice. That moment sealed her fate. She wasn't just cast, she became the heart of the play. Of the whole show. After that, everyone, even strangers on the street, called her Mrs. Cleaver. She made a difference before the first show even aired. Executives at CBS got a surprise while they were talking about pay. At that time, most women who worked in TV took any part they were offered, especially if they got the lead role. Barbara, on the other hand, had a different vibe. She was taking care of her two boys by herself. She needed safety. In 1957, she was being very brave when she asked for $500 per show. At first, executives didn't want to hire her, but her strong screen test made them give in. They agreed. She didn't just get a part. She quietly made history by being one of the first TV actors to be able to get a higher salary on her own terms. Behind the camera, things were not always easy, though. At first, Barbara and Hugh Beaumont, who played her husband Ward, had a lot of trouble getting along. Their connection outside of TV wasn't perfect. Hugh called her a Pollyanna one time, and that one word almost destroyed the way they worked together. There was no way Barbara was going to give up. She really liked how the show showed family life and wasn't afraid to stand up for what she thought was right. She often had disagreements with writers about what June should do when her kids act up. A lot of what June did didn't make sense to her. Too cold and angry. What a real mother would say would not be true. She pushed for rewrites, and the writers often had to come up with more believable situations that showed why June was so angry. These artistic differences even showed up in her scenes with Hugh Beaumont. It seemed like he was too strict and stuck in the past to her. Their fights got so bad that the show's directors had to step in to keep things running on time. But things changed after a few weeks. Their relationships at work got worse. Their differences made the story more interesting on TV. At first, they were at odds over their different ideas, but over time, they learned to accept each other and became friends. Barbara would say she missed him a lot years later. While everyone saw a perfect, calm mother every week, Barbara was actually going through personal problems that no one else knew about. A lot of her time on the show was spent as a single mom. She had been married 3 times. She had to keep up the image of the perfect American mom while also raising 2 sons and keeping together a real family that didn't look anything like the Cleavers. But she never let it show. Just a few weeks into shooting, she made one of the most interesting choices. Like many people in Hollywood in the 1950s, Barbara smoked a lot. Some people smoked 2 packs a day, but she saw June Cleaver and knew it wasn't right. She told the team she was leaving right away. She said, "I don't think the perfect American mom should smoke." She never smoked again after that day. She lived the part, not just played it. She quietly and without much fuss changed her life to match the ideal she showed. By the 3rd season, being popular had taken on a new meaning. The part that kept her career alive was now threatening to end it. She told no one that June made her feel stupid sometimes, and she was curious about what would happen after the show. She liked the steady job and routine, but she was afraid that once it was over, she'd always be in June Cleaver's shadow. That fear came true when the show ended in 1963. The only thing casting directors could picture her as was June Cleaver, the perfect TV mom, and they stuck with that idea. That it was hard for her to find work. She was only in 2 episodes of FBI in 1971 over the next 17 years. That was it. Back then, contracts only paid for 6 re-airs, so she quietly withdrew from the public eye. She traveled abroad and focused on raising her kids as a single parent during that time. Her husband had passed away. And now she had to make ends meet while living in the shadow of a person she couldn't change. Billingsley was 65 years old in 1980, and Hollywood had almost forgotten about her. Her last major role was in 2 episodes of the FBI in 1971, the last ones being in Leave It to Beaver in 1963. In many ways, she was hard to see. But that's exactly why the people in charge of Airplane wanted her. David and Jerry Zucker were looking for a white woman who looked like the most pure version of a good woman. Someone who was so different from Jive Talk that it would seem silly for her to play that part. They laughed when they thought about June Cleaver. They said meeting Billingsley in person was like meeting their real mom after being in foster care for years. They chose her for the part not because she was good at it, but because she wasn't. and that's what made it stand out. She almost didn't take it. She said it was the craziest thing she'd ever seen when she read the story. The part just said talks jive. There is no conversation or setting. She didn't understand and was about to leave. Her husband read it, though, and told her it was funny. She tried it out. The magic started when she had lunch with Al White and Norman Alexander Gibbs, the two guys she would be playing the part with. They wrote the lines with her too, not just helped her understand them. Al White even taught her how to say each word with the right hip-hop style and beat. It was important to her. She learned jive by reading books and going all the way back to slavery to find out where it came from. Where it began as a secret code that slaves used to talk easily without white people being able to understand. What began as a quick joke turned into one of the most quoted parts of the whole movie by everyone working together. People laughed more than just at that part of Airplane. It made Billingsley famous again. In 1983, she played June Cleaver again, the part that had made her famous. This time, though, things were different. Hugh Beaumont, who played her husband, passed away in 1982. Now June was no longer married. She was able to show a more complex and emotional side of the character in the comeback movie Still the Beaver. It worked. Because of how well the movie did, there was a full-length TV show called The New Leave It to Beaver that ran from 1983 to 1989. I wasn't just going back in time. June Cleaver was now talking about real-life issues like divorce, which Billingsley knew about because she had been through 3 marriages herself. The fact that she put on a show again at age 68 showed that she could still surprise people. In the middle of the show, she was cast in another part she didn't expect, and no one ever saw her. Since 1984, she did the role of Nanny in Muppet Babies. She did that job for 7 years, until 1991. People only saw Nanny's legs and hands, so Billingsley was able to get away from her on-screen picture in a clever way. There were no earrings, long hair, or June Cleaver smiles on her. There was only her voice. She was nominated for 2 Daytime Emmys for the part, but maybe even more important, it gave her a regular income until the late 1980s. This was a quiet win for someone who had a hard time in the 1970s. Because of how she looked, she used to be typecast. She was doing great now that she was hiding behind a cartoon character. As her fame from the return of Airplane and the Beaver grew, she laughed along with the joke. She started making guest appearances in the late 1980s and early 1990s, which changed how people saw her. On the show Murphy Brown, she played a crazy mother who made fun of June Cleaver. She played bad moms in Roseanne, Empty Nest, and Parker Lewis Can't Lose, all of which were very different from the typical good mom part. Many people were shocked to learn that Barbara Billingsley had been married 3 times in real life. She smoked and wasn't at all like the perfect mom she played. In 1998, she even went on Candid Camera with June Lockhart and Isabel Sanford to be in a parody class about motherhood. She wasn't just laughing at that point. She had turned into the joke, and she knew just how to give it. She last appeared in a movie in 1997 when she played Aunt Martha. As seen in the movie Leave It to Beaver. In 2003, 6 years later, she made her last TV appearance in a holiday movie called Secret Santa. But her friendship with the old company never went away. For the show's 50th anniversary on Good Morning America in 2007, she got back together with Jerry Mathers, Tony Dow, Frank Bank, and Ken Osmond. Their ages had all gone up. However, the link from the beginning was still strong. In her last years, Barbara Billingsley lived alone in Santa Monica. The sunshine often covered up the quiet battle she was having with rheumatoid arthritis. She kept shocking everyone, even as her joints got stiffer and it got harder for her to move. In her 90s, when most stars stopped singing, she went to fan gatherings and shocked everyone by breaking into smooth jive. Yes, the same stupid slang she used very well on the plane. In 1980, people who only knew her as the well-dressed, pearl-wearing June Cleaver laughed out loud as she said things like, "Chum don't want day help, chump don't get day help." Everything people thought they knew about her was turned on its head in that one moment. She died in peace on October 16, 2010, when she was 94 years old. Drew and Glenn, her kids, were right there with her. Polymyalgia was to blame. It was another painful problem she dealt with in a strong way. Her family wasn't the only ones who lost someone. It was the end of one of the most famous times in TV history. Barb had been divorced 3 times. She had a public image based on being almost perfect, but she used to smoke a lot before she quit during the height of her show. But none of that took away from how beautiful she was. Mail from fans kept coming in even when the papers were quiet. She read all of them. She kept her mind sharp. Even more sharp was her spirit. People thought about what a mother should be like for decades because of her character, June Cleaver. Always calm, always clean, and always at home with cookies ready to go. But for American women, that picture was both a relief and a burden. Some tried to live up to it. Others didn't like it. But Barbara was real. She was a single mom who worked in a field that didn't often give second chances to women, let alone divorced ones. It wasn't June. She was a lot more than that. She raised her kids while chasing jobs and making it in a town where men were the majority on her own terms. This is the reason why critics and experts today see her as an unintentional feminist icon. Her real life changed what the role she played meant. Not a fantasy, she turned into a figure of quiet strength that didn't need to be loud to be strong. What makes Barbara's story even more interesting? That's how much she gave away without letting anyone know. She thought giving gifts should be kept secret. It was until the people around her began to talk when she wasn't there. It turns out that she gave away a big chunk of her Leave It to Beaver residuals. No, not for attention or praise. She did it because she remembered what it was like to have problems. She gave money to kids who couldn't afford college to help them go. She gave money to children's hospitals without giving her name. Her co-stars were shocked by how much she gave. She had been helping kids she would never meet, just because she could, Jerry Mathers said. It felt even more real because she never told anyone. More stories started to come out after she died. The cast and crew recalled that she would swear sometimes between takes and had a dry, sarcastic sense of humor that never made it to the screen. She didn't fit the part. She worked as an actress full-time and knew the difference between work and personal life. That didn't make her less important, though. People who were born decades after the show stopped still watch it today. People still behave like June Cleaver. It's the standard, not because it's still the gold. Writers add to it, make fun of it, and question it, but they never ignore it. She was the one who cleaned the kitchen, had a great voice, and kept things quiet when things went wrong. It still lives on in every comedy mom that came after. There was more that Barbara Billingsley left behind than a part. She left behind a lot of different things. Someone who started with a picture ended up being a woman who was much tougher, more kind, and more complex than anyone had thought.